Over the years, we've become so used to him setting records, but wanted records. Points hauls, goals scored, first ever quadruple, and so forth. But now they're in the process of setting unwanted records, and there are numerous records they've set so far this season, so uncharacteristic of Manchester City and of Pep Guardiola, the excellence that he's delivered at Bayern, Barca and Manchester City. We can see them listed there on your screen. I'm going to top it up with a few additional statistics about City this season. And this one I find quite shocking. City have faced 158 shots, Sharpie. That's the fewest by any Premier League team this season. And yet, a joint league-high 15% have been scored. And we've seen how many goals they've conceded. That, for me, is the most puzzling statistic of all.
Yeah, well, I mean, the team's been disturbed, hasn't it? I don't think they've had a real regular back four. Rodri, they missed the protection of Rodri in front of them.
But they're still facing the fewest amount of shots. And you look at their results.
And I don't think the goalkeeper's been quite as good this year either, has he? I think that's probably why we're seeing a change between the posts. But, you know, each to a man, I don't think you can necessarily put the blame on one person. I just think as a team and as a unit, it's just not been happening.
Do you know what I think, though? I was sitting down and thinking about this today. I don't know what you think. But I think a lot of this is not down. Everybody's putting it down to Rodri. Listen, we've all played at clubs where we've had top players and they've been out. I think he's a fantastic footballer. But Ireland missed a lot of games last season. I'll tell you what's happened with Manchester City. If you look at the transfer market, and I think this has a lot to do with the financial fair play, they haven't done a lot of business. In the summer transfer market, right, they only brought one player in, 25 million. They sold players. I mean, they sold Alvarez for 75 million, Cancelo 25 million, Bellis for 23 million. So income, they brought in 141 million. I think what's happened now with the fair play, it's caught up with them. They've been for years and years and years overspending and getting away with it. And I think the fair play, and they're going to get done over it. They've got to get done over it. And I think it's been a problem for Pep because he hasn't been able to bring players in. And then the players are at the football club now. If you look at De Bruyne now, watch De Bruyne. I think he's an outstanding footballer. Can't play 90 minutes now. He's only good for an hour. After that, he's gone after an hour.
Well, two players on the screen there are in their 30s. And it's an interesting point you do bring up. I'm just going to jump in here. Because if you extend it even further, you look at the young players they've lost who never were given a chance. Your namesake, Cole Palmer. Yeah. We've seen what he's done at Chelsea. Romeo Lavia at Chelsea, outstanding player. There have been numerous players. Delap at Ipswich, he was let go as well. He's tearing up trees.
I didn't think they envisaged what was going to happen with the fair play. So what's happened now, you've got players like who you wouldn't have expected to happen. Carl Walker has been absolutely sensational for Man City. He's been poor for them. He's been poor. And they look like they've run out of legs. He's not been able to bring fresh paces in. Like I said, he's only brought one player in, spending 25 million. And I guarantee you they don't do a lot of business in the January transfer window because of that financial fair play. And that has had a ripple effect on the club.
It's interesting because, you know, take today's opponents, Everton, who, you know, in the last few seasons have actually brought in more money than they've spent on players. So the Everton squad has been run down. And I agree with you, Carlton. To some extent, the Man City squad appears to have been run down a little bit in quality, in age. And I just think there's freak circumstances that have come into that quote you mentioned earlier, those figures about, you know, 158 shots at the City goal is the fewest that any team's had to face. You know, but they've actually conceded the highest percentage of those out of anybody else.
15%.
Yeah. And I just think that there are just a whole shaft of freak results and situations that have come about for Manchester City. And I still think this, you know, 115 financial issues behind the scenes, apparently is 130, that they're going through this legal process on, hasn't helped them either.
No, and what I find very interesting is Pep yesterday was talking about they might struggle to get Champions League qualification, and if they don't get that, there's also financial implications for the club. So it's an imperfect storm, effectively.